We're back with our interview with incumbent Democratic Kansas Governor Laura Kelly, who's hoping voters elect her to a second term. We recently spoke with her about a number of important issues. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
You are Democratic governor in a red state. You're the only Democratic governor running for re-election in a state that Donald Trump won in 2020. What are the extra challenges this time around for you?
Well, I'm well aware of my status. When I ran in 2018, I ran specifically because Kansas was in such deep trouble. And I thought I had the skill set and the relationships with the legislature to go into the office day one and fix things. And that's exactly what we've done over the last 4 years. We have fully funded our schools, we have closed the Bank of KDOT, and we're fully funding our roads and bridge programs. We have reformed our foster care program so that we've got 1,500 fewer kids in there. And then we've done a heck of a job on economic development. We've brought in over $14.5 billion of new capital investment to the state, about 52,000 new or retained jobs. So I am running for re-election because I've gotten all of that done. I want to continue to build on that. And then I've also got other things that on my agenda that I've not completed yet.
You talk about your relationship with the legislature, which in the last year or two has been tenuous at best. How do you bridge that divide moving forward in a second term?
You really have to take a look at what we got done over the past 4 years, and that more defines my relationship with the legislature. I signed nearly 300 bipartisan bills into law in the state of Kansas, and that was because of the relationship that I had. Granted, there's a supermajority of Republicans, but I have a relationship with a number of them built on the 14 years I spent in the state Senate.
On the flip side, though, let's talk Medicaid. You tried 4 times to get Medicaid through. You say if you're reelected, you will try a 5th time.
I will.
What's going to make it stick this time?
I will never give up on getting Medicaid expanded. I think there are a number of factors that will play into the success we'll have getting it passed next year. I think first and foremost, let's not kid ourselves. I will never be on the ballot again, and so giving me a win like that will be gone. That motive is gone. Second of all, every state around us has now expanded Medicaid. So, aside from all of the other reasons to expand Medicaid, the 150,000 people, the new jobs, the billions of dollars from the federal government that would come into our state, we are now bleeding healthcare workers to our neighboring states because they can get reimbursed for their services there, and they can't in Kansas. So that's another big motivating factor, and particularly important in our rural communities.
Let's talk about the economy a bit. Your opponent has worked very hard to try to tie you to the president and rising inflation. How do you help right the ship for Kansans who are struggling to pay the grocery bills right now?
Well, what I did for that was to eliminate the sales tax on food, and I wanted to eliminate it all at once, right away. The legislature wouldn't accept that, and so it will be eliminated effective January 1st over a 3-year period of time. But that is another bill that they will have on their desks when they come back, is to go ahead. And again, we can take the politics out of this. The election will be over, and I will give them another bill to totally eliminate the food sales tax and to do it as quickly as administratively possible.
In August, we saw thousands of Kansans go to the ballot box in unprecedented numbers to try and protect abortion rights in Kansas. But this doesn't stop the legislature from potentially adding restrictions to abortion. As governor, if elected another term, you say you're a middle-of-the-road candidate and willing to compromise. Are there any limitations on abortion that you would approve?
Well, Kansas has quite a few restrictions on abortions as is, right. So it's not as if it's a free-for-all here. There are several restrictions that make it put up barriers to abortion. So I have been consistent in my 18 years in elected office on my position on women's reproductive health care. I do believe that those are decisions that should be made between the woman, her doctor, and her family, and that women have every right to bodily autonomy as men do.
So you would veto any new limitations that would come across your desk?
Most likely.
Let's talk about moderate voters. Kansas is a big state, right? Priorities for somebody in Hayes might be different than someone in Overland Park. How do you bridge that divide?
Well, I've been doing that since the day I started running for state senate in 2004, representing a very Republican district, including a very rural county. So I've known from the get-go that there are different needs in different places. So I felt it imperative to get to know what those needs were, what those people wanted. And I've done that as governor. I set up the Office of Rural Prosperity almost day one so that we would be focused on issues in our rural communities like a laser. And it's worked. We have developed incredible relationships with our communities out west, and economic development has followed. We've also followed through on some promises that were made for folks out west regarding bridges and roads, and we've fulfilled those promises. So I think it's by getting to know the people, working with them, figuring out what their needs are, and then delivering is the way that I get my message across. And we see that in the number of moderate Republican former elected officials who have endorsed my campaign.
What do you wish you'd done better in your first term, and where's the room for improvement in your eyes, do you think?
Well, that's a good question. Honestly, I think we've done a pretty good job. I'm very pleased with the people we chose to serve in the cabinet. There's not one patronage position there. I don't even know what political party they are. I just hired the best person for the job, and they have delivered in each of their respective areas. So I really can't think of anything that I would do particularly differently. Clearly, if I had the information I have now, there may have been some things I would do differently, but I dealt with what I had at the time.
Anything related to the pandemic?
It would be, yeah, certainly. In March of 2020, we knew nothing, and so we had to make decisions just based on history in the current science and professionals.
Would you have closed schools, looking back?
That's a really good question. Probably immediately, yes, I would have, because we didn't have the tools. Even now we know more about the virus, but we didn't even have the tools at that time. We had no personal protective equipment available, and we really didn't know how the virus was spread. So, yeah, I think I did the right thing at the time, based on the information that we had.
Governor Laura Kelly, thanks for your time.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you.